Ladies and gents, welcome to the Shroom Light Podcast. Tonight, another episode. The guest for tonight is Liam Farrugia, who is an avid fisher who likes to spend time on the water chasing golden perch, aka yellow belly. And that's one of his main passions. And, you know, if you don't find him chasing this particular species, you're going to find him chasing tuna offshore. Also marlin to boot as well. He's always fishing, just like the lot of us. So let's welcome him to the podcast tonight. Liam, how you going, mate?
Good, Shroom. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. This is actually take 2. First time we tried making this podcast, we had a bit of a struggle with the speed of the connection, but as you guys know, we don't give up, we keep trying, and that's why I'm very pleased to welcome you tonight to the podcast. And I just want to start off and just ask you a little bit about your fishing journey. How'd you get into fishing? And then how'd you get into golden perch fishing?
So, fishing for me, like, I've grown up, it's always been around me. Me dad, me grandparents, they've always done it. And as a young age, they've brought me with them.
Yep.
And it's just sort of become nature for me, I guess.
Do you remember what age you started and what sort of species or locations you were involved in at that time?
Oh, I don't remember what age, but there's photos of me as a baby holding
in diapers.
Holding fish. So, but Dad always used to take me. The dolphin fish was a big one as a kid growing up. We always used to go to the FAD, catch a whole bunch of dolphin fish, or
Right. That's very fun. Oh, sorry to interrupt you there, Liam, but yeah,
no,
extremely fun. I've only just ticked off dolphin fish in the last year or so. I hadn't gone to the FADs before. It's quite an experience.
It is. It's very good. It's especially when they're biting it. It really makes your day worth it.
Yeah, I think like for me, it was an eye-opening experience just being out there. You know, you're driving out towards there, let's say about an hour. I don't know how long. It takes a while to get out there to the FADs. And then on the way there, you may or may not see any boats, but then when you get there, there's like a dozen boats, and they're all working.
It's a city of boats.
Yeah, I think for me, just seeing a dozen boats there, it looked like hang on, it's like a actual meet out here. It was like Browns Mountain when I first went there. It was like about 50 boats. It's just You just drive out there, and suddenly there's all these boats over the horizon. You know you're at the right spot.
That's right.
And like you said, the dolphin fish, it's an experience because they're very aerial. They take to the air a lot, and they're flipping and flopping through the water, and you can see down into the water column very far because it's very clear out there, and you can just see everything, the bait, the fish itself, and the hookups. Even a small dolphin fish is about 50-60 centimeters.
That's right. And yeah, like the colors when they come through as a school, the neon blue, it's awesome to see.
That's right. Like their colors are just fluorescent. They glow in the sunlight. It's an experience for any of you guys that are thinking about giving dolphinfish or mahi a go. That's my experiences anyway. But getting back to, the podcast about golden perch. So how did you, completely do a 180 here? You're going from offshore, fishing for pelagics, seasonal fish, and now you're fishing far up, the rivers, the dams, I'm going to let you explain more about, whereabouts to, target these sorts of fish. But actually, in case I haven't mentioned it yet, we're talking Windamere golden perch specifically here. So Lake Windamere, I think I haven't even mentioned that, but, it'll be in the title. So I know that everyone that's clicked on this podcast will know what this podcast is about. So how did you do that transition from offshore dolphin fish to golden perch?
So, like I was saying before, fishing's always been there. As a family, we'd always go camping out to the dams, whether it be Windamere, Windamere. The golden perch was always the fish you wanted to catch, and most of the time we'd go out and back then I was just in a canoe, and just troll lures or cast. Not that I was ever very good at it back then. Yellow belly's always it's been the fish that's stuck in my head that I love to catch.
Yeah, fair enough. So, what would you say an aspect of golden perch fishing that really stands out in your mind compared to other species, that are available to you?
The aspect of them definitely be. Look, I love that pluck in the line. Like when you cast your lure out, you do your retrieve, and on the pause, you're just waiting for that pluck. It's that pluck that brings me back. I love it.
Awesome. Now, this is about Windamere Lake. I've actually never been to Windamere before. If I give you a few moments to explain this place, just in general, what it is like and what sort of structures are there, how would you go about that?
Windamere, it's not a massive dam by any means. It's big, but it's not huge. It's a dam you can cover most of in a day. It's loaded with trees, and on your plain banks, you've got good weed edges, which Windamere is renowned for.
So basically the two main sorts of structure there would be the weed edges and the submerged trees, which are, I assume, spread out throughout the middle of the lake as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Plus you've got rock walls as well. Rock walls is another big one I should have included.
What sort of, is there anything particular that's different about these rock walls, or it's just as per you would expect in a freshwater dam?
Yeah, it's sort of as you'd expect, but just another holding point for fish.
And what makes it so that this particular place is a good area to start targeting golden perch, besides from the fact that they're in there?
So two things is the numbers. Windamere is always been and always will be number one for numbers, and the size. It's a home of football, so they're just massive in there.
So you've got basically quantity and quantity ticked off there. So would you consider the premier place, at least in New South Wales?
100%. It is the mecca of yellow belly.
Right, excellent, yeah. Now, that term that you used, like I said, I'm a beginner when it comes to chasing golden perch. In fact, I haven't done it before. As far as I can remember, I haven't successfully caught one. What's this term about footballs? Is it related to their anatomy and the way that they look?
Just the way they're shaped. It's a big oval. That's the best way. And they're round as well. So you just picture a big blown up football. That's what they are.
Yeah, because this is going to lead into my next question, Liam, and that's sort of describing the anatomy of a golden perch and its, behavior and tendencies. Because obviously understanding that is going to help someone improve their success chasing these fish. So, like you said, they're a deep set fish. They're very, lack of a better word, they're pretty, well built. Okay, yeah. Fat. Okay, you can use the word fat here. We're not that PC when it comes to that. That's a normal term, right? So it's a pretty fat fish. I've seen pictures of them. They got like a really scooped tiny head. Yeah. And then once you go back from the head, they've got this very fat belly.
That's right.
And I don't know how to describe it. Is it sort of like, it's not quite like the size of a bass. I don't know. How would you describe it, Liam? Bit of a barramundi style head, I think, is it?
Yeah, definitely a barra style head, and then I don't even know what fish you could compare the body to. It's very unique, I'd say. Nothing definitely comes to mind.
Yeah, I guess this is one of those ones where you just got to see a picture of it to fully understand. But what about colours? Yellow, green, brown?
Yeah, they it changes on them, on what sort of banks they're on. So if you get them deep on a rocky bank, they'll usually be like a black. Right. They go really dark. Then you get them on like a shallow grassy bank. They're a bright fluorescent yellow, which is what they're renowned for.
Interesting. So it's sort of like, as you would expect for any species, adapting to the environment in that manner.
That's correct.
For example, flathead off the sand, very, what's that word? What's the opposite of dark? Very light colored, lightly modeled patterns, and very mellow sort of looking shapes and stuff. And once you start getting a fish that's up the river, it's starting to become very dark in coloration, and it just looks like a completely different thing. And that's the same thing with yellow belly here.
Yeah.
Now, about their behavior. So, for example, flathead ambush predators. So you'd expect them to lie in the sand or off a bank, or in some sort of like a drop off, and then spring into action. With a short little sprint towards their prey. How would you describe golden perch, their behaviors, their tendencies in how they behave and what they feed on, etc., etc.?
So, for golden perch, it's a seasonal sort of thing. In spring, you'll see them in schools of, can be up to 20, 30 fish, and they'll just sit up in the shallows with their heads down, picking on yabbies, worms, whatever they can sort of find. It's not really hard work for them. But then come now winter, they move out to trees, and they sort of sit on the trees and wait for schools of bait to come through. And once the school comes through, they'll actively chase the schools around the tree and then go back and sit.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this would probably lead into further discussion later about, where perhaps one could spend their time targeting yellow belly, at Lake Windamere. Now, let's move on a little bit and talk about the aspects of chasing these fish that really, stands out in your mind. So what sort of general sort of thing about just chasing golden perch in family? Maybe it's the scene, maybe it's the feeling, maybe it's the sport itself. What means the most to you? What stands out?
More the social side of it, sort of camping out with friends, having a laugh, and then it's not stressful fishing by any means. It's relaxful. Yeah, it's something you can enjoy without going overboard.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the pros in chasing golden perch from what I've heard. Is there a story behind that in why you say that, or an experience that you'd like to delve more deeply into? Because on this podcast, we love stories, we love having a yarn, we love talking fishing and the facts and, all the things to catch the fish itself. But, just spending time just talking about experiences is one of the main things as well.
Oh, there's many experiences, Shroom. Whenever you get a bunch of friends to come out with you, it's a laugh. It's a good time. It's that you can sleep in of a morning. You don't have to be up at the crack of dawn. Go out as you will and still catch fish. It's great.
Now, let's talk about chasing these fish in particular. So, obviously, this is probably more talking about boat fishing, I would assume, in the lake. Do you do any bank fishing at all there?
I used to growing up a bit, not so much anymore these days.
So let's talk about some boat tactics. Maybe let's run through some. I guess we'll just start off with lures, like sorts of lures we could use here, and how best to utilize them.
So going back on what I was saying before, how they're seasonal. So in a springtime way of chasing them, I would fish. I feel like to fish active, so I'll fish a blade, a soft vibe, a hard vibe, and I like to just cast them out as far as you can along a bank.
Yep.
And the technique for yellow bellies, doing it that way is that's another unique aspect of it. You're literally shaking the rod and winding, and then you pause, let it sink, and that's usually when they pluck. Going over to winter, like the rest of the year when they're on the trees, I use just black Berkeley grubs on a, say, 7 gram jig head, and just literally pull up at a tree, drop it all the way to the bottom, and you just slow wind and shake the rod tip the whole way up the tree. In a way, it's not the most fun way of fishing for them, you could say it. Like, I definitely prefer fishing the soft vibes and blades on the edges. But that's really your two techniques for them.
Oh, excellent. Let's go through this in a bit more detail. So, what are some vibes and blades that you like to use? And do you think it's important, or do you think that they like that style of lure, but there's many types that will work for them?
So I run all Proficient lures. Like, thanks to Dave, he's kind enough to give me access to all of his lures. And the reason I use blades and vibes, or not just me, a lot of people use that sort of lure, is it imitates a yabby, a fleeing yabby. That's their number one source of food in the dam. There's other ways people are fishing for them. Suspending minnows, like jerk baits, is another way people have started to touch on, and it definitely catches fish. But in my opinion, the numbers you catch with a diver are nowhere near what you catch on a blade or soft vibe.
That's awesome that you mentioned that. You really truly have seen that, at least for your own experiences, because like I said, it's very hard to just scientifically come out and just say, nah, this trumps that 100% of the time, every day of the week and twice on Sundays. How blades and vibes have outperformed, like you said, the suspending minnows and the jerk baits and maybe even the divers. But the fact that it imitates one of the main baits that they're feeding on, which would be a fleeing yabby, I mean, that's got to be critical. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. Imitating what they are actually eating is key to not just yellowbelly, any species, in my opinion. Like, I've had sessions there with mates where I'd be using whatever, I'm like a diver, and my mate's using a blade or a vibe, and he'd be catching 5 to my 1 fish, and
Right.
then eventually during the day you change it up and give in and say, right, yeah, I'll actually swap lures and go to something similar along the lines of what he's using, and by the end of the day you're competing with each other who can catch the most fish.
Yeah.
It's
Liam, you just touched on a really important and fun and relatable fact there. And that's when you fish with a mate and whatever they're doing just works.
Yeah.
And whatever you're doing makes you scratch your head because it worked the other day. It worked the other week. It worked the last time you were here. Nudge, nudge, yesterday or whatever day. And now they're seemingly pulling the fish like they're not even trying. And you're trying to hold on to your pride. Say, nah, this is going to work. I'm just going to keep sticking at it. And then before you know it, you come crawling to and say, hey, you got another one of those?
Yeah.
I like to tie it on. Oh, that's the worst. But we all can relate to that feeling there.
That reminds me of a session I had with one of my mates going back a few years. I was actually fishing with a blade, and he was adamant he was going to fish with a black grub. He goes, I've never caught a fish on one. I'm gonna stick to it. I said, yeah, fair enough. I'll keep plucking away with this. As the morning progressed, I think I had 7 or 8 fish, and he's caught none at this stage. And he's the most competitive bloke I've seen. And by this stage, he's ripping out his hair, and he's trying to put on lures that are similar but not the same. And he just can't make it work. And I think by about 1 o'clock in the day, he decided, yeah, have you got one of those laying around your tackle box? I can pinch off you. And I gave him one. And I think it was about, I don't think it was the first cast. I think it might have been the second or third.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight away he caught a fish. And he put his head down. He didn't want to admit. Yeah. That's probably one of my fondest memories with mates fishing. That was up there with the best.
Yeah. Oh, it's he caved in. He had to cave in.
Yeah.
At that stage. Now I understand what you mean by the social aspect of fishing being one of the best when it comes to golden perch.
That's right.
In Windamere. These are the sorts of sessions that everyone, I guess we all die for. That's there's obviously achieving your own sort of goals in fishing and, getting out there trying to break PBs and all that. But there's another thing when it comes to fishing with a mate and just making sure you keep up a respectable score. If not, you're winning the battle there. But even if it's not competitive, it's still, you don't want to be that guy, like you said, you've been 7 up all morning. So he's scratching his head. He's losing the last strands of his hair thinking, what is going on? He wants me to admit it. He wants me to ask, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to cave in, and then you end up caving in at lunch.
Yeah. Yep. And even if it's not the competitiveness, like you're saying, banter's a big one. Like that's what makes a fishing trip, in my opinion. If you've got good banter and good jokes, even if you don't catch a fish, the day's worth it.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, it's what I experience when I go chase yakkers. In fact, I know a lot of people don't do this, but you can chase yakkers with lures, and it's called arging. Not many people do it in Sydney. I don't even think many people do it in Australia, but I do it.
I'm curious to hear about this yakka fishing on lures.
Yeah, well, basically, it's just everything's just miniature, and everything's just sort of like scaled down so that they fit the sort of fight and the sort of hookup success that you would expect from a really tiny-mouthed scavenging predator that hangs around lights and wharves and has that bait fish mentality. And so once you start getting a few on the board, you can really enjoy it, and you can really get a few on the board as a sport. So obviously you can still enjoy them if you throw down a single hook or one of those sabiki jigs, but it's nowhere near as fun when you just go out there and you're just specifically targeting them and nothing but them with a bunch of mates. And then one of yours pulls up a 40 centimeter yakka, which is like a small king, and you're all going, oh, that's a kingy. And, you're just, you're frothing at the mouth just looking at it. And
that's right.
I guess, like I said, that the story there sort of links into the competitive nature of chasing, yellow belly. I'd say redfin fishing also is another one. Like something where you can get big numbers.
Oh, yeah. I took Eric... I took him about a week and a bit ago. He wanted to catch a feed of freshwater fish. I thought, I'll take him redfin fishing out at Lake Lyle. I think we only spent an hour and a half on the water, and he took home 30-odd redfin.
Wow.
So, yeah, they are a fun fish to target.
Yeah, I've only done it a few times, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like catching multiple bass or multiple bream in a row, and they're schooling and they're aggressive. Yeah.
And the bonus of that, they taste unreal.
They taste unreal. That's right. I haven't tasted the fish yet, but definitely everyone's been telling me that one of the best, if not the best, eating fish that we could get.
Definitely, and you're doing good for the environment by deleting them.
Yeah, that's right. So I think most people are aware of, but let's say that they're not. These are an invasive species, aren't they?
They are. From Europe, I believe.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's European introduced species, and unfortunately, it's sort of taken over. But you can do your bit. You can go get a cricket score worth of redfin one day.
I definitely recommend it.
So let's get back to the fact about the fleeing yabby and all that. So what sort of yabbies do you see in Lake Windamere, like color-wise? I guess we don't really know. Like, I don't know if you know like the species, and I don't even know if it matters. It's just the size and color of them that would matter.
They're about, they range from 3 centimeters all the way out to 10 centimeters. I've seen some claws laying on the bank. Yeah. That are massive. I really don't know the size of what that'd be, but yeah, they range dramatically. I think that's why you catch fish on tiny blades, and then you can catch them up to 100 mil soft vibes. And
these are dark coloured, like black coloured?
Depends where you're getting them. On rock walls, they are usually dark and black, like the fish. Then you get them on the grassier banks, they're a bit lighter in colour, but...
Yeah, I've... like I said, I haven't had much experiences going up to places like that, but I have been to some of the stocked trout dams near the mountains and a little bit just west of that. And I've seen some of the yabbies there, and they're blue. Or at least the claws. They're lined up along the edges of the bank. If you have a close look,
The blueness.
very deep blue colored.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering what sort of colors are there. So I've seen blue lures work very well for trout when I've been up, west. I mean, not been west, not been up, but been westward.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe a different type of yabby there.
I think that comes down to water clarity as well. Like I've brought home yabbies from places like Windamere or dams out in the bush and put them in the tank, and after a couple of months, they turn the blue.
Yeah, I guess maybe if someone knows about this, put a message down on one of my socials or something, or if you got it, or at least on the video if it goes up on YouTube. I know on Spotify it might be hard to put a comment down. But, just if you know something, drop it down. We're all anglers. We're all interested in knowing.
I'd be interested in hearing, and it's a massive learn. Like you can learn from it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, so we talked about vibes, we talked about blades. You mentioned also that, fishing in the winter, they sort of move off the edges, the grassy patches, and move towards the middle, and they're now sort of making the trees, submerged trees, as homes. And obviously, that's got to be pretty hard to extract them out of that sort of timber at times. And you mentioned that the technique would be to just basically drop down some black grubs and sort of slow wind them back and shake the rod tip.
Yeah.
Honestly, it doesn't sound like it'd be... I forgot the word that you used. I don't think you used the word boring, as in a boring way to catch him, but I would say that it seems like a way where you almost expect to have the rod just like get ripped out of your hand sometimes if you're just doing a slow wind, and it just goes ding, and it's like you're on and you're thumping and you're just trying to rip it out of the trees, so to speak. Isn't that sort of exciting?
It is, but even still, like the hit when they're on the trees isn't the hit like they are on the edges. Like when you're winding it slow, you'll just feel the rod tip just get that slight bend in it, a little bit of weight, and you sort of lift into it like you would a squid, I guess. And then once they sort of wake up, it's not hard, fast runs. It's like slow, like loaded runs in towards a tree. That they definitely don't always go back into the timber like a bass or anything would. They just sort of fight the line. They don't look for structure to go back into. So they are pretty easy. Like they are definitely manageable on like 8 pound line in trees.
Yeah. Okay. I'm starting to understand a little bit more about these perch. That's why I asked you that question on relating to maybe to their anatomy, their behavior, their tendencies, and what they're like. So now I'm sort of picturing, I can see what they look like, their colors, how they're sort of behaving, where they like to be in this place, particularly according to the seasons, and the way that the fight might go. Like you've already said, things such as bass, they're looking to brick you straight into the wood, and even a small one, if it gets the run on you, you're in trouble basically. And
if you give it an inch, it's going to take a while.
That's right. You'll be lifting up the whole tree along with the bass itself. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Now, you liken this to like a squid bite and a squid method, like a squid style of fight. So
yeah, it is very similar. The runs are a little bit different to a squid. Like it's more of a fish actually going sort of run. But as far as the take goes, it's just you feel the load in the rod tip like you would a squid, and it's not. You don't even have to set the hooks massively. It's just to pull the weight, and that fish will turn and do its thing.
Would you say that they like moving lures and moving baits as opposed to one that's on the bottom? Would you say that?
Seasonal. Yeah. They will eat, like in spring they will eat off the bottom. Winter, definitely moving. Touching on like live technology, I've learnt while fishing deep for them on trees. Like you'll be winding it slow, and that fish will be following the lure the whole way. If you stop or pause, that fish will turn away.
Oh, right.
Like,
Yes.
They like a constant movement.
Right.
Not even if you stop. If you change your technique, change it up, that fish will turn off.
And moving it fast would put them off as well?
Yes and no. I've had fish, most of the time it does sort of spook them. But then I've had fish just find another gear and come in even hotter for it.
That's excellent, actually. Knowing that they do like a moving bait at times and they'll happily just sit behind it, following it all the way. So you can sort of increase your chances if one technique's not working. Keeping it constantly moving could actually be the answer, on the day.
That's another thing I recommend, not even just for yellowbelly, just for fishing in general. Learn from what you're doing. Like if you catch a fish doing one thing, go back and think, okay, what did I do to get that fish? Play it into your next sort of few casts, and if it keeps working, you've obviously found a pattern, and just that's the trick, I reckon.
Now, you mentioned that some of these blades included, I've got the name of the brand that you're using, but is there anything that someone could just go out to the shops and pick up some specific blades or lures that you reckon would work?
Proficient tackle. They're in most of your stores, nearly all of your stores. Just look for the blue packaging with Proficient, and all the colours work. Like most of them are all natural colours, and they all work. I preference the pink and black.
All right, that's it. I'm gonna go buy pink and black. Here we go.
But yeah, no, they're in nearly all your tackle stores, and very affordable on pricing as well.
Yeah. What about blades? Is it? Oh, sorry, not blades. I've just been asking about blades. Vibes. I'm assuming soft vibes.
Soft vibes and hard vibes like rattlers.
Any specific soft vibes?
I fish with the Proficient ones. I like I think it's the 65 mil.
Yep.
I prefer more of your smaller lures. I find personally I catch more fish on small lures, and fishing as well is a confidence thing. When you have confidence, you'll repetitively use that lure, and that's what it is for me. Like my mates will fish with bigger lures and catch the same amount of fish as me. It just comes down to confidence at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right. So basically what I'm trying to say is your confidence in that pink and black is my confidence now.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other lure types or lures that you recommend?
The Berkeley.
Maybe a different style of fishing. Do you do any other types of... obviously these are pretty much confined to either grubs or blades and vibes. What about, say, I don't know, there's a few other ones that people like to use in the freshwater, being, spinner baits, I don't know. You know what I mean? There's a lot of them, fresh, like spoons. I guess freshwater. I guess like surface maybe even. Does anyone even do that? Is that a viable technique?
Look, I have heard of yellowbelly caught on surface, not out of dams, out of rivers, but that's a very rare occurrence. I think. Right. If I wanted to mix it up and cast another lure, I'd go to a little chatterbait, like what you'd use for bass. We've caught a few using that, just trying something different, and it has worked. It hasn't been a consistent sort of thing, but it does catch fish.
Yeah.
Like I've had 45 centimeter yellowbelly eat a cod chatterbait.
Wow.
Yeah, like a 150 mil cod chatterbait. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is insane.
Spinnerbaits, I've never really used for them. I'm sure there's people that have and have successfully caught fish. It's really only yellowbelly, cod. They have since the dam's risen and the rivers push more water into the dam. They have had a few European carp show up, which isn't a good sign. But
oh no,
yeah, but it's predominantly cod, yellowbelly. I think there's a few silver perch and catfish. There's a lot of catfish in there as well.
Yeah, do you get a few of them on the lures or?
Yeah, especially this time of the year. I think they start to do their nesting and breeding, and they're very aggressive. If you see like a nest or something on the bottom, and you cast your blade. As soon as your blade hits anywhere near that nest, that catfish has inhaled it.
Right.
Man, they fight hard. They fight harder than a yellow belly, I reckon.
Well, it sounds like they're pretty temperamental, so that might be why they're a bit aggro.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, let's talk about maybe seasons and stuff here. These seasons and then leading into conditions. Probably should have talked about gear, but we'll circle around to gear later. You mentioned 8 pounds, so we probably already sort of know the types of gear. But when's the best time to chase golden perch? For
everyday anglers that don't have access to a boat or technology as advanced as what a lot of people are using, spring is renowned for yellow belly. When everyone thinks of yellow belly, they think of spring. So from August to November, that's the prime time.
Right. Why do you think that's the case? Are they breeding or are they getting ready to breed?
That's their breeding time of the year. That's when they spawn. That's when they push all up to the edges, and that's when they're easiest to target. And you can catch cricket scores of them in a day.
So I guess I'm just putting together a picture here. So breeding season comes around. They're getting out of their winter slumber. They're trying to feed up, getting ready for breeding.
That's right.
They're feeding wherever they can, and they start searching wide and wider areas. They're moving from the deep to the shallows, trying to find food, yabbies, etc., etc. Then they accidentally find one of your blades, and away it goes. And then before you know it, you've got about 50 in the bag for a session.
I wouldn't say 50, but yeah, an unreal session on yellow belly for the average fisherman. I'd say 20 fish in a day would be a really good day. Yeah, I'd definitely say 20 fish would be a great day.
What's the best you've done?
I think it was 37, I think it was.
Lost count. Yeah, I'm surprised you even could count. After about 10, it starts becoming, I caught about 20. You just forget how many you've caught.
The funny thing is that that's a day I actually remember quite well. It was, I think till about, would have been about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We only had 3 fish. And we thought this day is gonna end tragically. And I found this one point with a good weed edge. And I thought, this will be our last spot for the day, and we'll call it. And every cast, I'd hook up. My mate would hook up. Would drop a fish. It was just insane. I would have been about a 2-3 hour window.
Yep.
And we finished up with, I think it was 36 or 37 fish off just this one point.
Jeez.
Yeah.
What lure were you using?
So for us, that was a day of sampling and trying lures.
Yep.
So the number one was the blade.
Yep.
The rattling vibes. Just your hard vibes, they worked really well, and soft vibes. That's the main 3 we were using. I think on that bank on that day, no matter what you threw, I think they would have eaten it.
You reckon sound is a very big asset in a lure for yellow belly?
Definitely. I've had days back in the old days where hard vibes were really good. I've had days where I would be using a rattling vibe, thinking it's going to make a massive difference, but my mate next to me is using a silent one without any rattle, and he'd be the one catching all the fish, and then the next day he can change and I'd be the one catching all the fish. It all depends on the fish on the day, but I think sound does play a massive part, and vibration as well.
That's interesting. And would you prefer sound rather than not? Or, I mean, I guess it depends on the day, like you said, but more often than not.
Going off the lures I fish, soft vibes and blades, they don't have a sound, so I'd say silent.
Yep.
Would be better, yeah.
Now, just for those that can't hit Windamere in the spring, this is definitely an all-round, target. Obviously, they're landlocked, so they sort of have to eat. So it's an all-round target in that area. Obviously, you got to contend with, at times catfish and cod. Who wants a cod? I'm not joking.
Nah, a cod is always a welcome bycatch.
That's right. uh, um, yeah. Let's move on from that. So we now talked about like the seasons in which they're biting. Now, what's the next obvious point of discussion here? I guess we could talk about gear first. Let's go talk about gear while I think of where else, because I had a few interesting questions that I had lined up. One of them being technology, but we'll talk about the gear first. So, what sorts of like, rods, reels, leaders, etc., just the basics, just to cover numbers here for someone that wants to do it.
So for rod, I like a 2 to 4 kilo stick. I like around a 7-foot rod. I'll match that with a 2500 size reel and 10 pound with 10 pound leader.
Yep.
That's your perfect yellow belly combo, in my opinion.
Yeah, so basically just the brim gear, or maybe beefed up brim gear,
so to speak. Essentially. I do like that little bit longer rod, like the 7 foot. Yeah. That does make a difference, especially for the way you fish, in my opinion.
I think, maybe the slightly, you got that little bit of a length. It helps with the blades, just sort of like moving them up and down if you have a gentle technique.
Definitely. With the blades, that's actually a good thing you mentioned that. I was always using a 2 to 4 kilo rod, like specifically for blades. I've now gone down to a 1 to 2 kilo, like a lighter rod, and I find the action I get out of it is a lot better as well.
All right, let's move on into conditions. This one here. So I know it's a thing that when you fish these, these dams and lakes and, impoundments, so to speak, rainfall has obviously an impact, at least on the water level, oxygen level, and such.
While it's raining, I don't think it has an effect on them. I think after the rain, I know for me, if I've seen it's been raining for a few days prior to me going fishing, especially in spring, I'll go up the back of a bay or an inlet where I know water's coming in, and generally you'll find them schooled up, like a trout, thinking it's going to go upstream. That'd be what I'd look for after a rain event.
And are you able to see them physically with your eyes, or do you have to resort to technology?
No, definitely. If the clarity's there on a spring day, if you are stealthy enough, you can see multiple fish up in the weeds. It's actually a very exciting way of fishing for them, and it's something I wouldn't mind doing a bit more of later on is fly fishing for them by sight. That'd be something I really wanted to try.
Is that something people do?
It is. A lot of people go to Windamere and they park the boats up on the bank and walk the weed flats, scanning for them with their eyes and targeting them that way. It is a good and exciting way to fish for them.
Now, obviously, you haven't done this with the fly rod, I'm assuming.
No, not in the dams. I have in the rivers.
Yep.
But yeah, not in the dams.
Okay, well, you've done it in the rivers, so what's the sort of flies and maybe even gear? I mean, I've got a few combos, you see. I've got fly fishing gear, I just don't take it out. So this gives me an idea on, what I could be doing with my fly gear that's gathering dust.
I definitely wouldn't call myself a fly fisherman, and I know a lot of people would agree or disagree with what I do. I just fished a 6-weight, like this. I just an all-round combo for me. I got a 6-weight fly rod with floating line. I just run a little bit longer leader to get the flies to sink. I usually just fish a black woolly bugger or a woolly bugger of any kind, really, and just fish it like I would a lure. Twitch, pause. That's just how I fished it, and I've hooked a few. I haven't landed one yet. That's the next goal for me.
Your tip it being too light, or just terrible technique once you hook the fish?
I think it's like I get the fish closer to the bank and the hooks pull. So it's definitely something I'm doing as an angler, and I'd actually be keen to go with someone who does it quite a bit and to learn what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, that's just all. That's all I've done for him, and I've definitely hooked the fish. It's just landing them. Definitely. Yeah. So barometer's a massive one. Like an ideal conditions would be a high barometer. Anything they say 10, 20, the fish are plenty. Even 10, 15, around that sort of thing. That's really good. I like any fishing, not just for yellow belly. I like the lead up to a full moon, like a few days before. I think that is I think it's a light switch for them. Really, I don't know what it is, why it affects them, but fish just always come on the chew. Now with the wind, see, most people when they fish, they hear wind or see wind and go, "Oh, that's just ruined my day," and pack her up, time to go. But chasing yellowbelly, especially in the springtime, if I can find a bank that's copped a fair bit of wind all day, and you can see the point, like a point's been chopped up with white caps, that's the first place I'm fishing. Just that usually it stirs up the water, brings the yabbies out of the banks. It's a natural food source for them, and that's where you'll find them.
Like my understanding is, you want to go to the wind-blown bank in a dam situation in the freshwater, and it's everything that you've just said. It can be very hard fishing at land-based. Let me tell you that. I find that if the winds are a little bit strong, you're fishing in the winter, you're freezing, lines flying in your face, but that's where they are. So you gotta pretty much just put your time in there and believe in, all the things that put all the right things in place. I guess in a way, using these heavier jig heads and blades, you get a bit more distance anyway in your cast, so it's a bit more manageable than super light finesse jig heads and light lures. Interesting about the moon phase you talked about. It seems like are you saying the entire full moon is not too good, or is that what you're saying? Because a lot of people that come on my podcast, they're like, "Oh, you know what, shrimp? I'm allergic to the full moon. Like, the dewies don't bite. I'm in bed. I won't come out. It's like my baits, my lures don't get touched." Is that what you're saying?
Fish, there's always going to be a hungry fish and it's going to eat on a full moon, but as a majority, the lead up and just coming off, I find fish is the best. I don't know what it is about the full moon itself, just they just don't chew as good.
Fair enough. And like I said, empirically, just asking all the people in the podcast, that seems to be the consensus for saltwater fishing, and obviously now freshwater, we've got some people here that are on that train that, full moon's not too good. So I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm just going to keep asking everyone that keeps coming on about the moon phase, and I think by the end of it, we're going to find that the full moon is the most hated phase of the moon for anglers.
Definitely, and not even just for fishing. Like I'm into a fair bit of hunting as well, and I'll go out on a full moon, and even animals don't come out on a full moon. They stay hidden.
Now, I want to put there's a caveat here, and that is some people do say that the full moon is good for squid fishing. So that, the jury's still out on that one. In fact, it's still out on everything. I'm just saying, just as a bit of a, running joke on the podcast, that most people don't like the full moon. But, we'll see. Like you said, fish have to eat sometimes, and if you're fishing the full moon, well, so be it. I've caught good fish on a full moon. But it's just interesting to see what people think about it.
Definitely. Well, my biggest Murray cods come off a full moon, and I hate a full moon for cod, so yeah. It's like I say, like fish definitely eat. And as far as the squid census goes, like I can understand why. Like whenever I've known for squid fishing, I look for light. Fish come up to light, so.
Now, I got a question, and it's about maybe technology in how, it's sort of changed fishing, particularly freshwater fishing. But I'll let you take care of this question. So, as far as I know, there is certain things when it comes to sounders now that it's just changed the entire playing field of fishing.
Sounders have come a long way. Like I was saying, growing up, fishing in a canoe, I didn't even know what a sounder was. Then growing up, you had just your sonar to pick up the bottom. If you had a good one, you could mark a fish. Then you got the side scan and stuff come out, and you can use those tools to really help you with your fishing. Now for me, as far as technology goes, it's come a massive way, and I've bought myself the live scope, like the live technology. If anyone doesn't really know what that is, picture live footage under the water. Like picture your down scan screen, but in live time. So I can physically see my lure come down. I can see the fish follow my lure. It's like a camera, and that's changed the way I fish massively. I'm definitely not putting in as many casts as I used to, but now I'm starting to catch more fish purely for the fact, not because it's easier. That's a big thing. People say, "Oh, you've got live technology. It's easier." It's not fishing. For me, when I first got it, I didn't catch a fish off that screen for months. Like, it's a massive learning curve, and I think if you are willing to learn, you can benefit a long way in it. Yeah, like that's like for me now, yellowbelly fishing. I can see what schools of yellowbelly are active and what are not. Like I'll fish a bank, like I know it's fishy prior to having the screen there. I'll see, like, to my surprise, there's I would have thought there's 5 or 6 fish on this point. There could be 30, and and only one of those fish will eat. It's it does help you find fish, I think, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, what's the most eye-opening thing? Having it there, that piece of technology for the very first time, you've figured out how to use it. You're seeing a dot moving towards your lure. You're starting to freak out a bit.
Oh, the first time I remember, I think I was fishing for bass in the river at home, and this is like probably a month after having it, and by this stage I thought I've wasted my money on this crap. Like, it got to the stage where I was turning it off and just fishing how I used to, but I was just hopping blades on the bottom, and I remember it was two fish come into me lure. I gave it a hop and watched it sink, and I watched the lure go down, and I watched the fish come down after it, and I felt the pluck, and I hooked it, caught it. It was only a small bass, but just seeing it like in actual footage in front of me, I thought, wow, this is great. The best thing I've seen on it, I was fishing the Hawkesbury River for dewies, and I was turning, because it's on a pole, so you turn the pole and it picks up what direction you want to face and like how far out you can have it. I was turning the pole and I seen this big, like on the screen I've got scales in meters. I see this big, it looked like a whale. It was a big bull shark on the screen. It took up like 4 meters on my screen. I thought, holy, this thing's massive. That was cool.
Imagine if you were on a kayak.
Well, I wouldn't have liked to be. Yeah.
Have you noticed anything in the way that technology will tell you when you have feeding fish versus dormant?
Definitely. So on the winter side of things in dams, and you go from dam to tree to tree, not having the technology, you'd go to the tree, drop your lure down, just wind it up. You'd give it a few goes, and you might have fish that are active on that tree and following your lure. You just don't know, but you'll go to the next tree. Now when I pull up on that tree, I'll see those fish. I'll drop the lure down. Usually if they're active, once the lure goes past, they'll swim down for it. And then once you start tapping your rod tip and bringing it up, they'll come chasing it, or they'll show some interest in it. When they're not, that lure can nearly touch its nose going down and coming up, and if it doesn't move, it's not going to move. But I have noticed, I have been on trees where they have been like that, and all of a sudden it's a flick of a switch, and they just turn on.
And you wouldn't have known that without having
definitely not the technology. Like I can see how many fish are on that tree, and you can good enough technology, you can judge the size of your fish.
I think that, would you say that that's sort of like the next direction that fishing is heading toward now?
Oh, it definitely is. More and more people are jumping on the bandwagon and trying to get. I think good on them. it's something to learn off. Like we all go out there to catch fish. Don't get me wrong. Like that's our number one thing. But for me, if I do a day's fishing and I don't catch nothing, what I learn, I'm happy.
I want to go back over and talk about specific key areas in Lake Windamere on how to target golden perch. So we talked about some of the types of habitats there, but we haven't really specifically gone in that sort of direction.
So going back to where to target them, well, we said windblown banks or points was great. It is great, but obviously you're going to get days where there's no wind. I usually like to look for like points. So you'll have a bay which comes out to a point into the main part of the dam. That's a great holding spot for fish. You've got rocky edges, like just any forms of little structure. Like what you see out of the water is what's going to be below. Like you can see the gradient of the bank. For me, I've found most of my bigger fish have come from steeper rocky banks. Then you've got your weed edges. Weed edges are what Windamere is known for. They got that big snot weed, and if you find a good edge of that, generally you're in for a good shot. But then with that snot weed, going back to lures, so I retrofit all my lures with assist hooks because of the weed. If you're fishing with trebles, you catch the weed, you can't fish properly. As when you got your assist hooks on there, the weed doesn't catch nowhere near, and it literally comes straight off, and you can fish that cast like normal. That's a big thing I should have included earlier.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point there. So weed is the bane of every angler's existence when it comes to fishing certain times a year. After rains and the salt, it's really prohibitive and it really puts you off. Sometimes you feel like you only get about one hop and then you've caught weed and you're not going to catch anything after that. And you've got to recast and pick it off with your fingers. That's a good point in retrofitting them. So this is obviously an obvious question here. So they won't hit a lure that's got weed on it, would they?
No. Oh, depends how much weed. If it's got a big ball of weed, no, they're not going to hit it. But if it's got a little bit, I'm sure they would. But yeah, the assist hooks are a must for Windamere. And personally, I think I have like the hookup rate and like landing rate is better with assist too. Like I've fished trebles a few times and I've found I always pull hooks, but with assist hooks, they stay in.
Any particular size to these hooks?
Not really, just whatever looks good on that lure, I guess. Obviously, I'm not going to have massive jigging assist hooks, but yeah, just
king hooks.
Yeah, no, just the little hooks.
Take one off a knife jig and just whack it on the blade.
That's right.
I hear that you do a bit of tournament fishing.
I do. I've grown up doing a lot of tournament fishing in the saltwater, but now I've started to get right into the freshwater yellow belly scene, and I'm actually really enjoying it.
When was your last comp?
About 3 months ago.
Right.
There was a teams fishing comp. It was the entry scared me a bit. It's $1,000 entry.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't really think freshwater entries were
what was
that
the
much.
prize? A house?
No, the top prize I think was it might have been $10,000.
Yeah, for a $1,000 entry, I was just sort of cracking a joke there that you must be winning a house or something.
No, you'd think so, and the scary thing was like, bloody hell, I'm paying $1,000, and I'm competing against the best of the best.
Yeah.
But you go there. The key thing for tournament fishing, I'm sure a lot of tournament anglers will agree, is like we're all going there for number one position. That's the goal. But when you're actually there in the event, I think the main thing is have fun. The more you have fun and you're enjoying what you're doing, that's when the success comes, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude to have. And it kind of makes you, sort of overlook the $1,000 entry at times. Knowing that.
That's right.
Jeez, I can't believe it's $1,000. That's not normal, is it, for a comp?
Nah, most comps are a lot less, but
yeah,
like $1,000, you've got your raffle tickets as well, like that, like your raffles, like it all goes into the prizes, and the prizes you get back are good. Like,
yeah,
it makes it worth it.
And you're supporting fishing, I guess, in a way. You're continuing the comp. You're helping. You're just helping out in a way, spending your money back into the sport that you love.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Liam Farrugia, thank you very much for coming on the Shroom Light podcast tonight and basically educating me and obviously, hopefully, the people that are listening to this podcast as well about chasing golden perch in Lake Windamere.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Shroom.
And look, is there anyone that you'd like to thank? There's people that have contributed to, your growth and success over the years. And of course, let everyone know how they can keep in touch with you and how to contact you. Your socials, so to speak.
Yeah, like I'd definitely like to thank Dave from Proficient Tackle. He's supported and helped me with lures and stuff over the time I've been freshwater fishing, and without him and his product, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And to find me, Instagram's just Liam Farrugia. I think my profile picture is just me holding a yellow belly.
Yeah, oh, nice, awesome. That should be easy to recognize.
Any questions, feel free to shoot me a message. I always reply, so yeah.
So I'm going to be putting the details on how to contact Liam Farrugia and his socials in the description of the Spotify and the YouTube as well. So you guys can obviously just click on that link and it'll take you right there. And yeah, once again, thank you very much to Liam for coming on this podcast. If you guys listening at home would like to come on board and share a night with me, maybe talk a species, talk something about fishing, I'm always down for that. So make sure you drop me a message somewhere along any of my socials, because I would greatly look forward to that. And I know a lot of people here are just hoping for the next episode. So I try my best to keep the content coming. But for now, this is Shroom from the Shroom Light podcast, signing out.